Hello, and welcome to Eastern Geeks Out, an EP Media associated podcast where I'll be discussing news and interesting topics in the gaming and entertainment world. My name is Deforest White, and I'll be your host for the duration of these episodes. Our first story today, I'm not alone in the studio today. I'm joined by my new co-host, Jordan Lowry. Say hello to the lovely folk, Jordan.
How are y'all doing?
Now, you've stayed in for some of the episodes before, so you got kind of a general idea of how this is going to go.
Yeah.
We've just got like a few gaming headlines that we got to cover. First off, I'm going to talk a bit about Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 finally being released on Switch, Xbox, and PS4. These two games were previously PlayStation exclusive, and although the Persona 4 Golden did recently get PC release, I think about halfway through summer.
I think so, yeah.
That sounds about right. And this makes it to where the entire modern Persona series are playable across all modern platforms, which is fantastic. Love to see it. Atlas getting more recognition.
Yes. They definitely need some more, though, because Persona definitely as a game, great game, by the way.
It's
great
fantastic.
Game. It's a good game. Good masterpiece, too. But it's a really it's like a game that a lot of people don't think of playing because it's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of a new style that most people just don't see. But I just like playing games like that too, like the ones that just like you don't expect to play, but then just end up playing it. It's such a good game.
I mean, for those who are unaware, the Persona series has been going strong. It's a spin-off of the Shin Megami Tensei series, and started on the original PlayStation. So it's got like a pretty storied history, but until the release of Persona 5 on the PS3 and PS4, it was never really like quite as mainstream like recognized as it is now. Persona 3 and Persona 4 still got like a lot of recognition, but not nearly to the point where like it was a household name. Like when Smash Bros. Ultimate came out, Joker was released as a DLC character, like first in the pack, teased the day of release. So it's pretty substantial. Glad to see that we're finally getting these games on other consoles. After that, a big PlayStation headliner for PS5 console owners, Forespoken. Jordan, you know anything about this game?
Yeah, I've heard so much about it. I actually kind of want to play that game too. It's gonna be fun, I feel like.
I'm personally a sucker for any game that gives you like a ton of different movement options. If you give me parkour mechanics and they work well, I'm all for it. This is great. And this game, it's an isekai based in a high fantasy world where you play as a girl from like the modern era, and she gets like warped to this world with like sort of modern mentality, but access to all of these like crazy magical abilities. And given that sort of setup, you would think it would be like, you know, your Dark Souls type, or maybe even your God of War, like hack and slash kind of thing. No, it's like some of the most smooth open world movement I've seen in anything ever.
Gosh,
I think this game appeals to me more than like Elden Ring did.
Well, see, for one, the girl's based around New York City. For one, that's the part I was like, okay, now they're really basing it off of stuff like that. But no, the main thing, I played the demo. That's the thing too. I played the demo of it. It was so crisp. Like, I love demos when it's crisp and you can feel like you're actually playing the game. In this game, you felt like you were playing the game. So I can vouch. I feel like Forespoken is gonna be a good game, and I just wish I pre-ordered it, but I didn't. So
well, I mean, it's available now. You can go and get it at your leisure. Next up, fairly new game, One Piece Odyssey.
Oh, yeah, I've been hearing
this
about that
one,
too.
this one's a bit of a dark horse because normally over like the past several years we've had a few One Piece tie-in games.
Yeah, there's been a lot.
This one in particular is interesting because instead of going for like the open world like beat 'em up style or the Muso style Warriors series that they had, you know, the Dynasty Warriors, Hyrule Warriors, One Piece Warriors was like its own series. We had Burning Blood a while back that was all based on like 1v1 combat. It was super cool. But Odyssey forgoes all of that in favor of like a Dragon Quest-esque like turn-based RPG fighting style that looks crisp as hell, first of all, but also seems like the game takes the characters through like the memories of the different regions that they've gone to thus far in the anime, which is fantastic. I don't know if you're a One Piece fan or anything.
Yeah, I've seen One Piece. It's a pretty good anime, but like
So long.
it's very long and it's still going to it. I'm
Still
like,
going.
no. But
I'm in chapter 900 as we speak.
I don't know what chapter I'm on. I'm on a chapter, I guess. But no, it's like most anime type games, they're just missing some kind of element that I hope this game can like bring out in you. But like, I'm also still skeptical about that, and it's just kind of not on my radar yet. But
Right.
it's still on that list of like, okay, I'll check that out once I see the reviews. You know.
Well, I mean, journalists have had their hands on it for a little bit. We'll have to see what the general public thinks about it. But like, I'm like hesitant because anime tie-in games, as you said, have like a long history of just kind of being okay. I know people will sing the praises of like the Naruto arena fighters to no end, but like honestly, I never even like got all the hype behind those. Do you have like a particular genre that you feel like lends itself to shonen anime better than any others?
You
or,
see,
like-
I feel like I don't, cause like you see most shonen games, I mean, and they're mostly just beat 'em up fighting games.
Right.
Like, I respect that if it was like, you know, not just the only thing anime was leaning towards. Like, you got what's good ones? Dragon Ball Fighters.
Dragon Ball Fighters is amazing.
It's good. I like it. But then you also got like Xenoverse 2. And I'm like,
Which I feel less good towards.
see, I'm kind of a fan of Xenoverse 2 cuz it's like it's got more of a style that I like, mainly cuz it's just like you have that story-based missions, then you got that open world kind of feel to it. So it's kind of like it kind of ties into what I'm looking for in an anime game, which is basically like what kind of a game resembles the show
Right.
in a game. That's just how I see it, and not just all beat 'em up.
I personally would argue that Dragon Ball Fighters nailed the look and the aesthetic of Dragon Ball far better than Xenoverse 2 did.
You got a point there. I don't like Xenoverse's like look to it, but if they took Xenoverse and Fighters and like changed the art style for it and just put Xenoverse, I feel like it would have been a hit.
Now, the problem there is that Arc System Works, the company that created Dragon Ball Fighters as well as the Guilty Gear franchise that the engine that game is running on originated from, they hand animate every frame for those. So
Really?
they're using 3D models, but all of the like individual like the tweening, all of the like smears in like attack animations, that's all done by hand. They're not using a model and then moving that model's limbs around to match the animation like a lot of like 3D games do, and in fact like Xenoverse does. They are taking into account where the camera is at all times and stretching the models in certain way to maneuver around that. And they have their own like engine that works specifically with this cell shaded art style so that they can make it look hand drawn, which is how they were able to emulate like the art style of original Dragon Ball Z episodes with the base Goku and base Vegeta characters that were part of season 1. And in an open world game where you have free control of the camera yourself, you don't get that level of like creative freedom over the animation process. You can try a little bit, but like if you go and you look at even like the super animations in Xenoverse 2, which are the best that game has to offer, if you were to put them side by side with the same supers being performed, like Android 17 in Xenoverse and Android 17 in Fighters have the same super. It does the same thing mechanically.
Right.
But it looks far better in Fighters because they were able to like maneuver the camera the way that they want and make it look like it's being animated in a 2D art style instead of just moving the models around.
Well, going back to the whole mechanic system, what did you feel about the open world Dragon Ball game?
Kakarot's a bit of a weird case. I mean, it's still getting new updates. We have the Bardock like campaign.
I did see that.
Is coming out soon, and while I'm not necessarily against like retelling the same stories when it comes to like anime games, because like of course we have these iconic moments, we want to return to them. I do think that while definitely more graphically appealing than Xenoverse 2, which like that makes sense because it's several years younger.
Right.
Kakarot has like the same sort of combat feel to it that Xenoverse 2 does, and this is sort of my big concern, not necessarily with anime games in general, but with Dragon Ball specifically, where so much of these games feel like the same game, but again, when you go back and you look at Budokai Tenkaichi on the Wii, or you go back and you look at the Xenoverse series, or you look at Kakarot, if you like take a couple steps back and squint, these games look like you're doing the same thing in all of them, and that's because you kind of are.
Yeah.
It's like this free flying third person camera right here combat that's just the same. You do a beat, you get like a converter off of the beat, you flash to behind the opponent, you have a rock paper scissors interaction, and you do a combo that's got no like motions associated. It's oh boy, they're all like a masher's paradise.
Well,
To the point where actually the Budokai series had like mini games on them where you would mash your hand on the controller.
now that Budokai series though, like
I
that.
don't like it. I
What?
know I'm in the minority, but I don't like
Okay,
Budokai.
I don't really remember it that much, like, because back then as a kid, you were like, that was the first kind of Dragon Ball game I picked up. Because I used to watch Dragon Ball as a kid. Like, come on, who really
I
didn't?
think most people
That's what I'm
did.
saying. Who didn't watch it? So, like, going back and was like, this is an anime game that I played as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was amazing. Like, come on, the soundtrack was goated.
Soundtrack's great.
Don't even get me started with the soundtrack. It was so good.
Roster's kind of lacking, I feel
It was lacking. I'm not even gonna lie there. It was lacking a little bit, but that's okay.
I will also say, on a technical level, my first Dragon Ball games would have been Super Sonic Warriors on the Game Boy Advance, as well as Dragon Ball GT Final Bout on the OG PlayStation, which, for those who are unaware, is one of the worst games of all time. It is bad. It is rough.
I don't remember like which part I played, but I know I played a Dragon Ball game on the PSP. Now that one was fun. Like
I have no idea what that would have been.
I don't remember. Like I remember going to my friend's house and being like, "Hey, boot up Dragon Ball. We're playing it right now. We're gonna run this." And it was great. Like it was a great game. I forget like it was more of like a fighting beat 'em up, but like with the story. So that's what I kind of liked. I'm mostly a big story guy.
That's fair. And like I'm personally a fighting game junkie. We'll talk a bit about upcoming Street Fighter 6 in a little bit, but like I'm the sort of person who values story and world over most other things as well. But if the game, I feel like, it doesn't have the mechanics to uphold me as the player to the level that the story does, it's not going to retain me. There's not going to be that level of like engagement with the game itself.
Yeah. I feel like I'm more of a person to like play the game for the story. I am more of a story person. But like if you give me something like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Tekken, I play it with like friends. I could never just sit there and just play it like by myself like that. I can't do it because it's just like.
See, the problem is that you haven't played King of Fighters yet.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't played that though. But yeah.
I mean, personally, with the exception of Mortal Kombat that you mentioned, these are my. I love that. But like, it's very difficult for people outside of the FGC, the fighting game community, to get into fighting games because they're like more mechanically demanding than a lot of other like franchises, which is understandable. But it always struck me as odd that there's that like weird dichotomy where you have people saying fighting games are too hard to get into. I can play them casually with friends, but anytime there's like that one person who's better at it, I just get beat up all the time. The same people that I hear talking about that will then go and play Bloodborne and be like, this is my favorite game of all time.
I could not do anything, and no Souls game can keep my interest.
No, not a 1, really.
No, I've played Elden Ring, and that was basically like the first game I played, first Souls game that I played like nonstop. I tried to play Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3. I tried to play Bloodborne. Those games did not hold my interest though, because every person I asked, like my old roommate, he loved Dark Souls. Him and his cousin would play that nonstop, and I'm like, nah, I don't see this. I tried it. I couldn't even get past the first level, and so I quit. I'm like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
But then Elden Ring came, and it was more like a culture shift, basically.
Right.
They made it,
everyone's playing it.
Yeah, they made it like
Inescapable.
it's mainly because it's just like got a map, you got a horse, but they also made it like, I feel like they made it more fair. Like it's more of like, sure, you still gotta be learning the mechanics, you still gotta come here, do some mechanically fighting stuff, whatever.
It's still punishing, but like you
It's
have more
very
options as a
punishing,
player.
yes, and it's like really fun too. You just, I don't know, it's something about it.
I will say, I personally almost completely disinterested in Elden Ring, but that's not because of the mechanics of it. That's because I don't find the world interesting.
Really?
And like, there's all this work put into this world, and I know that. Like, if I take a step back and I look at it from a third-person perspective, logically, there's so much effort has been put into this world. It has like Tolkien level. Like they got George R.R. Martin to work on it. That's wild.
It was a very. I thought
And
it was a good world.
I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, this sure does look like a bunch of bland grass around some mountains.
Really?
Like there's nothing there.
I thought it was a good one. I really thought it was a good one.
Monster designs are cool, but like outside of that, I found very little appealing to me. And granted, this may be because I'm the sort of person who's like more naturally like drawn to like, ooh, pretty colors. And this game doesn't have a lot of pretty colors because they're like, oh no, we really want you to feel like bogged down by this world. And I'm like, I don't know, man. That's not me. The only Soulsborne like type of game that I've been able to play that like did garner my attention for longer than just a little bit was Sekiro. Sekiro was one because that one, I think it was Scott Falco that said it was like the combat in that game feels like it's got the same sort of philosophy behind it, but it feels more like a rhythm game in terms of execution than it does like consistent like roll now, use your iframes, get behind enemy, keep distance from enemy, chip away at health forever. Sekiro goes for more of like there will be enemies you are all fighting using pretty much the same style. You do have this like dodge ability, but the majority of the time you're looking for that parry. You're looking for like your like instant where you can hit the opponent and they're dead in one hit. So it's always like every interaction that you have in that game will be the like quick draw, like the samurai pull out the sword kind of thing. And personally, that appeals to me far more than the rest of these like just maneuver around your enemy forever until they die or you do.
You know, one game that's always will stand out to me as being one of the most like best kind of samurai swords game. I'm not gonna lie, it's Ghost of Tsushima.
I kind of figured that's where you were going because they came out like
even.
around the same time.
Yes. See, I haven't played Sekiro yet. I wanted to play it, but then I was like, I was hesitant. I was going
Game of the Year at Game Awards.
I know it was
out.
Game of the Year, and I was like, this I gotta check it out. But I was still hesitant because of, you know, will I like it? It's kind of a Souls type game. I'm still hesitant.
What console are you playing on?
I'm playing on all of them. I got PC, Xbox, Switch, Oculus. So I got basically everything.
I noticed you didn't include PlayStation in that.
No, I forgot PS5 too.
Oh,
PS5
okay.
too.
I was gonna say I fully have like a physical copy. I could loan it to you. Like,
Yeah. No, I got a digital though.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Dang.
It's rough, man.
I know it is. But
Welcome to the new era. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that we did have like a wave of like gritty samurai games all at once, because that's also around the same time that like the Neo games came out.
that's true.
And that's like not quite the same, but like sort of in that same area.
Yeah.
Moving away from like the mechanics of games though, we probably would be remiss not to mention the like recent gaming news, less in terms of like games coming out and more in terms of like games getting shut down potentially. 343 Industries, subsidiary of Microsoft, about 10 or 11 days ago, Microsoft reported that they were laying off a total of 10,000 workers, the vast majority of which worked for 343 Industries, the Coalition, the Gears of War creators, and Bethesda Game Studios, which is insane.
That is wild. That's a straight wipe. Now, like, if you think of prospectively, that's people. Those are real people doing their job, trying to provide for their family. And that's 10,000 people. 10,000. I don't even know 10,000 people.
I know maybe 10,000 people.
I do not. It's just like...
I don't know most of their names.
Yeah, obviously. But that's crazy to think about, like... And they did it kind of, like, easily, too, because it was
very much a spur of the moment thing. Apparently, the people who were working at 343 that got laid off, like, let know, like, hey, you're done. Didn't even get, like, a notification before it happened. It was like, hey, bad news. You no longer have a job.
That's awful. Like, dang.
It's just a sad truth of the industry
really
at this
is.
point. This is coming off of the heels of last year where we had, like, a whole lot of news surrounding Microsoft and Bethesda. The FTC at one point intervened with their trade because Microsoft was being deemed like a worldwide monopoly.
Yeah, I've heard about that, yeah.
So like I have to wonder whether there's like some influence of like they got too big and they're having to downsize in order to like I have nothing to back this up. Of course, this is all pure speculation. But like 10,000 people is so much for like the series that for the longest time was Microsoft. Xbox was Halo.
Right.
And now it's like not necessarily like a failure, but like Infinite's not doing great.
Infinite was not doing that well. Like, if you think about it, like it was pretty hyped up.
It was a
It was
cool ass
hyped
game.
up. It was very cool. But again, it's one of those things. It's like, how did this game not succeed? Like, what was missing about it?
I mean, largely the problems were they changed to a free-to-play model, and the online mode for everything was cosmetics and season-based, which, I mean, from a business standpoint, it makes sense for them to do that because that's how everything works now. Apex and Overwatch, like, that's kind of your competition there. Probably less so Fortnite.
Yeah, probably.
But
Warzone's even in that mix too a little bit.
I mean, yeah, kind of. I will say I do have a lot of issue with like the changes from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2 because they've swapped from going the purely aesthetic route to the oh no, if you don't have this season pass, you just straight up don't get all the characters in this game that you paid $60 for because we felt like getting rid of the old one.
That's stupid, but okay.
But Halo didn't have that. Halo started from the beginning of like, yeah, no, we're setting out this is going to be free to play online and this is our model. The problems were almost all internal. It was server issues. It was game bugs. It was like lack of player retention, honestly, was a big part of it. And there's all of these players on Xbox that are like, honestly, the timing of this is tragic because the first big like win that Halo had had in a while was this recent update where they introduced like, yeah, you can we brought the Forge back from previous entries where you can create your own maps. And I mean, looking at like different news sites, I saw something on Kotaku recently talking about like all of these like crazy maps people were people were creating within the confines of Halo Infinite.
Oh, yeah.
And right as soon as they've got like a couple months of that, everyone's gone. So now, not all 10,000 of those people have left the company immediately. That is Microsoft saying that some people are leaving. It says here that Bloomberg recorded 878 positions cut from Microsoft's Washington location alone as of right now. But like Q3 of this year, 10,000 people gone.
Wow.
I mean that's insane.
That is crazy to think about.
And it's weird because like it's not after you see something along the lines of like, congratulations, your game studio. I shouldn't call Microsoft a game studio. Your company is now the largest thing in the planet.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to go from that to we can no longer support our workers. Because like, by all means, Microsoft is and always has been a money factory.
Oh yeah, it's been up there with top competitors, very much so.
I think they're arguably the top competitor for the longest time. And I mean, as much as I don't like them, Game Pass is an amazing service. Like,
oh yeah, it is.
Xbox is doing well for themselves.
Yeah.
So what led to this? And we don't fully have answers on yet, and a lot of that we probably never will have answers on because it's all like very internal, like company secret kind of thing. But like, I wonder how much the employees that are being laid off know about why that happened, if they know anything at all. Because as of right now, of course, when you sign up to be like a worker for these companies, there's always going to be NDA agreements. You're never going to. There's always going to be NDAs. Agreement is extra. But you're not going to be allowed to talk about a large part of what's going on inside the company, which means that some of these people could know why they were fired and not be allowed to tell us, which is crazy.
Very much so.
But given that it's this many people, I highly suspect that we're going to see more headlines in the very near future, because no matter how many contracts you have signed, it's really hard to keep 10,000 sets of lips sealed.
10,000? Yeah, there ain't no way.
So I expect we'll see a bit there. Going back a little bit, you made a comment earlier when we were talking about Forespoken. You've got like an infatuation with demos that make you feel like you're playing like a significant portion of the game.
Yeah. I've
got a story, Jordan.
That's scary.
So over this this winter break we just came back from, Street Fighter 6 had its second beta, and this is my most anticipated game of 2023. Okay. It is absolutely gorgeous. You talked a little bit before about like, oh, you're not really feeling fighting games. That's like a thing you do with your friends. Street Fighter 6 is open world. Why is it like that? Who knows?
Wait. So you're telling me Street Fighter 6 is now open world? Because I didn't even hear about that.
Street Fighter 6 is an open world create-a-character game. You make your own character, you go through an open world, and that's not just like open world of like, oh yeah, you can walk around Metro City. You can fully go to several places across the planet, and Metro City is like your hub area. You can interact with classic characters from across the series, and more than that, all of these like older characters from the previous games, you can interact with and fight against, take classes from them, and teach your own creative character their special moves, so you can hodgepodge together. Like, oh, you want to have like Dhalsim's teleport and Ryu's uppercut? Great, do it. So I really think they're going out of their way to cater to this more on the casual side of the audience. Like, fighting games have this reputation for being very esports centric, but now they're adding in like mini games. Like, here, fight these giant versions of the enemies from NES Mega Man, or like, here, play the original Final Fight on like tiny little arcade cabinets in the open world, or like, here, there's a system where, in addition to online lobbies where you can fight people normally using like the regular cast of characters, you can run into other players in the open world and fight using your creative characters, which is insane.
Huh.
And there's never been a game that's done this. The closest thing we have is like Mortal Kombat or Soul Calibur, where it's like you can create your own variation of a character, or
Well,
like you can create a character that uses the moveset of another one.
Yeah.
We've never had a game do this on the level that Street Fighter 6 is, where they're fully having you create a character using the movesets of everyone else and just letting you do whatever you want with them.
That's true. Well, I mean,
And
the first game that came to mind when you like, as soon as you said like open world, I like fighting game. I kind of thought Jump Force, but then I was like,
Jump Force had a hub world.
they had a hub world, and then it was
all of the
that.
fights were arena based.
That's true.
But in addition, despite what the Game Awards will tell you, Jump Force is not a fighting game. Jump Force is an arena anime fighter. In the same vein as the Budokai Tenkaichi series, in the same vein as Kill la Kill If, in the same vein as the Naruto Storm series. These are games in which you run around an open arena, like almost wrestling style game, and you fight against each other like that. These are not considered fighting games by the vast majority of the FGC.
So would this technically, like, if we were going along the same category, would this technically be like a Pokemon style kind of? So it's like, instead of having the whole run into an enemy, now you gotta fight them. Instead, it's just a straight up fighter game.
So, interesting comparison. I hadn't considered that, but like actually, yeah, from the footage that we do have, running into like random NPCs in this world, you kind of do that sort of like, oh, you walked in front of me, time to fight kind of thing.
I was thinking, like, okay.
It doesn't differentiate, like Street Fighter 6 is still a fighting game,
Right.
but that's because of how the mechanics of the fights themselves work, not because of the open world aspect. A fighting game, normally you have two players on each side of a screen, and that is the space in which they move. So like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter work in a 2D area where you have up, down, forward, and back, and that's it. That's your whole movement. And this game maintains that. You can move omnidirectional during the open world segments, but once you start a fight, you're limited to a 2D space. So you're not going to be like sidestepping attacks or anything. If you're looking for 3D fighters that do utilize like arenas without being a straight up like anime arena fighter like those, your options there are going to be like Tekken, full arenas, like maneuverable, but you're still limited to a 2D space in terms of like where the camera puts you. You have Virtua Fighter with very much the same principle, although a bit like I would say equally storied history as Tekken, but Virtua Fighter like revolutionized the entire industry.
Right.
These are in Soul Calibur. In addition to that, is like these are the games that you're gonna see considered like 3D fighters. Even after changing from 2D sprites to 3D models, Street Fighter 4, 5, and 6 are still considered to be 2D traditional fighting games because your own movement is limited to this one axis. I guess two when you take in like jumping into account. Right. But no, Street Fighter 6 is really interesting because, well, first of all, yeah, there is that open world aspect, but in addition, we've seen footage of characters like using like special moves outside of combat. So like, oh, there's a gap that you can't get across. Well, you've learned how to do Chun-Li's spinning bird kick, so you can get across that gap now. They've turned Street Fighter into a Metroidvania, and I don't know whose idea that was, but it's beautiful. And I hope that Dan is in the game. But no, my story that I was going to talk about initially, they had their second beta, and the open world was not included in that. You do get to move around, but it's all like inside a lobby. You create a character, you walk around. So I, this past break, the night that the beta opened, I got into this one, first of all. I got my code. I don't have a PlayStation 5, but my family does, so I was actually able to get access to it. I got on, I created my character, took a little bit, sign up.
Right.
I started up the game. I got to the character select screen. There's only, I think, 6 characters available during the open beta. It was Ryu, Chun-Li, Luke, what's his name? Jamie, Guile, and Jury. And I played around as Jury, and I'm sorry, I played around as Guile, and I was like, this is really cool. This feels like crisp. This is smooth. I was about to switch to Jury, and then the power went out. This open beta was open for 3 days, and the power went out after my first round. And that day, my family went on a road trip back to Kentucky to hang out with my family for Christmas.
No.
So I played 1 round of Street Fighter 6 and nothing more.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I'm sorry for your loss on that one.
I'm so sad, Jordan. I don't get to play
Wow.
this game again until May.
Oh, wow. That is depressing.
And the worst part is, it was so good. It was so good. We've gotten to see more characters since then. Just this past evening, Capcom had a private event where they showcased Marissa, the big brawlic gladiator themed boxer character. She looks amazing. As well as Manon, who's a French ballet themed grappler character who looks amazing. Will either of them get me to play anyone but Guile and Jury? Probably not. But they are, the animations are incredible. But I'm not going to be able to touch them for another several months, and I'm so upset.
I think I saw a little bit of gameplay of Street Fighters, and I thought the graphics looked amazing. I'm not even gonna lie.
So cool looking.
I am a sucker for graphics, and them graphics were amazing.
And it's one of those things where you can tell the developers put a ton of love into it, because there's little Easter eggs hidden around, and a lot of people don't, when they're thinking of Easter eggs, they pretty well think exclusively of open world games or first person shooters, where it's oh yeah, you go into this secret area and you find this thing. But with fighting games, something that you'll end up with more frequently is hidden character interactions. There's a song in Street Fighter 6 that plays when you do the big level 3 super of one of the characters, Kimberly. And she she puts her headphones on and it changes the background music for whatever stage you're on to her super theme, and that's great. That's super fun. That's cool. It gives her a little fun little effect, and that's neat by itself. But in the eventuality that you had 2 Kimberlys playing against each other and they both used a theme, there's an entire another version of that song with added vocals that you would never hear in any other circumstance.
Wow.
And there's just tiny little things like this. If you do a taunt as Jamie at the beginning of the round, he'll sing along to his theme while he's doing the taunt, and he's got different taunts for every level of how drunk he is, because he's a drunken boxer. And just sick little details like that they have truly no reason to include other than they're having fun with it. And
right.
I, as someone who values the passion of the developers over almost everything else, I think that this is incredible just to see. Oh yeah. I'm gonna move on a little bit away from more specific topics and ask Jordan, how do you feel about crossovers?
Crossovers, what do you mean crossovers? Do you
So,
mean
just within the past month, I got a list here. Guilty Gear characters are appearing in River City Girls 2. My Hero Academia characters are in Fortnite.
Oh yeah, I saw that one.
Characters from Disney's Encanto are appearing in Fall Guys. The WWE cast is appearing in Rainbow Six Siege, because they have to be in everything ever. You can play as characters from Magic the Gathering in Smite, and something that me and our podcasting director saw just before we started recording, there's a Tomb Raider expansion for Power Wash Simulator.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Okay. So, if we're going based off of that, I think sometimes it's stupid. I really feel like it's stupid. Now, the Tomb Raider one makes sense though.
Okay, now
Since
I'm gonna
it's-
need you to explain that.
Okay,
'Cause
okay,
that's the
okay.
odd one out
So
for me.
I read. Well, I was watching a video because I always watch like kind of gaming stuff when I fall asleep because I actually fall asleep. So super cool. Apparently, Power Washing Simulator was made by the people who made Tomb Raiders. So that's why
Wait,
they're
really?
Yeah. So that's why they're making a Tomb Raider. That's why they're making a Tomb Raider expansion for it. I was blown away. I was like, how's that gonna work? And why those two games? But I was like, okay, maybe.
Crystal Dynamics did Tomb Raider. Did they also create?
I think
I'm gonna. They also made the Marvel's Avengers, like the Square Enix spinoff, like the RPG thing.
Oh, yeah.
People did not like that one. Let me Google this to make sure.
Nah, see, I'm
quick.
googling too. What was the
Power Wash Simulator, published by Square Enix. So okay, actually, yeah, that makes sense.
There we go.
All right.
See, see again.
All
I
right,
was like,
I shouldn't have doubted. You're on your shit.
I guess I'm on it right now. I guess I'm on it. But the rest of the stuff, like Fortnite and taking on like My Hero, or like taking all
Everyone's in Fortnite
every
now.
single character is in Fortnite. I don't know why I'm not in Fortnite yet, but still, like,
Well, that's because we haven't been sponsored by Epic Games yet. Hi.
I'm just saying.
Hello.
I'm just
You
saying.
there, Sebastian at Epic Games. I'm talking to you specifically.
I was gonna say
Put Jordan
Alex.
Lowry in Fortnite. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I want. That's all I ask. But like, you have games like that, but then you also got games, which Fortnite is fine nowadays because it's like, it's Fortnite. You expect them to have some kind of.
I feel
wacky
like the
crossover.
toxicity surrounding the game has sort of like left its player
Right.
base a little bit.
But then you have games like Call of Duty.
Right.
Why would you need Messi in Call of Duty shooting people with like an M4 when you're over here just when the dude's only playing soccer? Like, I don't want to see Snoop Dogg in Warzone. Like,
Now I don't know who that last person was. Snoop Dogg in Warzone is actually not the strangest crossover that he's had specifically.
That's
like,
true.
Don't
It's
get me wrong.
Snoop Dogg.
Snoop was like playable in like Def Jam Fight for New York because of course he was. But there's another thing. In the Wii U version of Tekken Tag Tournament 2, there is a Snoop Dogg themed stage where he has a live concert around the arena.
see, what do you think about the live kind of concerts on video games?
I mean, in that one, it was entirely like fabricated. It's like a recording of this thing, and
Yeah.
he's the guest appearing in the stage, and I think that's great. But if you mean like in terms of Fortnite hosting, like here's Marshmallow, that was forever ago.
That was a while
But like,
ago, but still.
I'm in the minority here because I think it's fine. However, I don't know any of these people.
You know, I think it's kind of cool though. Like, if you think
it's
about
super
it,
cool as like an
Yeah.
event. It's like, yeah, it's a free concert that you get to attend in a virtual world. That's sick. That's so cool.
plus definitely
Are
was
we-
during COVID times.
Are
though.
we supposed to shoot them? What's the deal here? Because the thing that I never understood is like, it's in Fortnite, right?
It is in Fortnite.
And it's a thing that just happens in the Fortnite map,
Yes.
where you run around and kill everyone while the storm gets smaller.
Yes.
How does that lead into this? Because like, I'm clearly not like a Fortnite player over here.
I feel like it's just due to the fact that I feel like Fortnite is trying to be it's trying to be its own thing. Like,
It feels like Fortnite is trying to be like its own entertainment platform, like a
is.
genre.
like you know how you had just the whole battle royale aspect to Fortnite.
Mm-hmm.
Now you change in like, I think it's been like 4 or 5 years since it's been out now or so, that you change a battle royale, which everyone was like, oh, they're probably just copying off of PUBG or off of Apex.
I forgot that with Apex
Yeah.
was post
Apex
Fortnite.
was post Fortnite. Yeah,
Yeah.
You're right. But yeah, they were like, this is a copy off of PUBG. This ain't the original battle royale, even though everyone's talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
No, Fortnite became popular because it was a battle royale and it was a fun game.
Yeah.
But then they started adding new stuff to it, and then it didn't become
Crossovers went wild.
Oh, yes, it's been going crazy. And then you have a weird storyline to it. That's wacky too. I don't even understand it either.
The lore aspect of it is such a wild thing that makes sense from a marketing perspective, because if you get Matt Pat talking about anything,
Or
you
The
win.
Rock? Like you got The Rock dressing up as a robot dude. Like, I'm just like, that's pretty cool.
Now you know for a fact that either one of us is also capable of getting The Rock to dress up like a robot dude. He wants to do that. He's looking for an excuse to do that.
He wanted to do that. But I'm just like, okay, pop off, Fortnite. Pop off.
I do think it's really interesting though that like we have this culture of crossovers being such an expected thing at this point. Like, oh yeah, what is this? You got a little fun little like platformer beat 'em up there. Let's put every character from every indie beat 'em up ever in it.
See, I hate that.
Well, put Shovel Knight in there. Put
that
Katana
so
Zero
much.
in there.
No.
And I'm for it, honestly.
I'm not. I don't like all these crossovers. Like, you see crossovers in shows like Power Rangers meet Power Rangers. That makes sense, okay? But when
Nah. Power Rangers meet Ninja Turtles.
Now,
you laugh. It was amazing.
I remember it too, and it was good, I guess. But like,
He guesses.
I guess, like, I'm just saying, like, no, I just don't see it.
Now, the one thing that I've always thought was really funny was that, like, the thing that I never understood getting crossovers was, like, sports. You're a sports fan? Sure, whatever, fine. I'll respect you less, but that's okay.
Right.
But, like, the WWE people and the Harlem Globetrotters are, like, fighting game characters and Scooby-Doo guests, and you can't do everything.
Yeah, no, not at all. Or I just thought of it too, and then it just left my mind, I think. But it was that one show where I think it was made by the NFL, and they just made like it was like a kind of a cartoony NFL action, like. But they were like kids that transformed into like actual NFL characters, and I thought that thing was so cool. Like,
I have no idea what you're talking about, but it sounds hilarious.
It was
because what I'm imagining is something akin to like Mike Tyson Mysteries. And I know that's not what it is because you said it was a kids show, but
it was mostly a kid. I think it was like NFL spinoff of trying to be an anime, but like. You can tell it was definitely not trying to be an anime. Like, it was more of the realm of, like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Because I think it was on Nickelodeon, too, so.
I straight up just didn't have TV growing up, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I will bring us on to our next topic here, though. I'm going to talk a little bit about VR.
Okay.
So the PlayStation VR, something that I had with the PS4, you've got a bit of experience with, you said Oculus.
Yeah, I do have a VR experience, yeah.
So the only one I've ever owned outside of like Google Cardboard, because of course I did. I had the PlayStation VR that my family had. Mm-hmm. And honestly, for like how cheap it was, really high quality, like good stuff. And now with the PlayStation 5, they're launching the PlayStation VR 2.
I have heard
and
that,
over like just recently they had a VR centric event. Sony showcased some pretty neat VR games that are coming out. We have here some that I've noted. Res Infinite, which is a VR version of Res Infinite, I mean, because Res came out a while ago. It's one of those like very surreal, like sort of in the same vein as like Tetris Effect or just Shapes and Beats, where it's a game that you're supposed to zen out to. Shoot things, watch them blow up, pretty colors. Like,
oh yeah,
it is the glory of pretty graphics, pretty graphics. And that is like the whole reason you're there. You're there for the immersion of it all, without like the necessity of story, without the necessity of like character designs. You are there for watching pretty things do pretty things.
Oh yeah, that sounds good in VR,
and
though.
Having something like that in VR I find greatly appealing. It was immediately followed up by a kayak game, which honestly I think might be the funniest thing.
No, let's be real here though. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
I would play it. I would 100% play it. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, why would you not want to play a kayaking game? Like, I've never been kayaking, but just be like rowing the
Now,
boat.
the problem here is that you know for a fact they're not going to release a big like oar paddle attachment. You are going to be playing this kayak game with the same PlayStation Move controllers we've had since the
I
PS3.
can't stand those, man. That's why I like the the VR for PlayStation. I've seen so much of it. Well, I wasn't a PlayStation guy back in the day.
Right.
It was mostly Xbox, obviously. But
I love that we're talking about the PS4 generation using back in the day.
I'm just saying, now it's back in the day because now we got that high end stuff, you know.
Of course.
But no, it's just those things just sucked. I didn't like those.
I mean, it makes sense given like the functionality of them. They're funny looking controllers.
They are
Don't get me
very
wrong.
funny.
They got big orbs on them. But
Orbeez.
do you know like how they work? Okay,
play 'em.
so they actually work the same way that the PSVR headset does, which is in conjunction with the PlayStation Move camera.
Oh.
The camera sits on top of the screen, and it knows where your controllers are because it sees those orbs, and it is able to register relative to your own position on screen. And it does the same thing with PSVR. If you look at the headset, it's got this big oval on the front of it, a light, and that's how it's tracking your movement, in addition to the accelerometers in the headset.
Okay.
So it does actually have a reason for being there, but they are very funny looking.
They are very.
In addition to Res Infinite and Kayak, which, like, all jokes aside, graphically stunning game.
would imagine.
I think it'd be really fun to have like the Kayak game as just like, you know, one of those like virtual roller coasters things that you used to see at arcades.
But then it would also be one of those games where you could just, you could just chill out. I can already imagine like a kayak.
Oh, you
game.
have not seen this trailer.
Oh, isn't that?
You're not going to be chilling out, man.
Oh, never
You
mind.
are going to be going over that waterfall now.
See, now I thought it was like a peaceful one. Like they got some nice somber music in the back. You got the birds chirping in your ear. You know?
I mean, for a minute or two.
for a minute, and then I'm guessing just.
And then the dinosaurs come in. There aren't dinosaurs. I don't. No, I'm fucking with you. So up after that, we have the Last Clockwinder, which is an interesting looking game. We don't know too much about it as of yet. But did you ever play the Talos Principle or see any of it? So that's kind of the vibe that I got from this. Talos Principle was a game in which you played as a robot maneuvering around like this virtual world called the library, I'm pretty sure. And you were like finding remnants of civilization, and your own consciousness in this robot body was like moving around and solving puzzles. And it had this mechanic of like you could record yourself moving through puzzles, and then you could play that back after you've moved away, and you would see your like after image move through the world and affect the puzzles that you were going.
Oh wow,
And
that's really cool.
this game looks like it's doing something similarly, but the puzzles maneuver off of like you layering that upon itself. So you're doing all of these like clockwork like instruction stuff, but it's like you're creating your own assembly line of like this step is done first, and then you hand it like you're going to hand it to someone else. But then you just record that, and then you move on to the next station, and you take the thing that you were handing from yourself, and you do this thing with it, and you hand it down the line, and you record that, and you change it down. So by the end of it, you've got like 12 clones of yourself doing this really intricate thing, working this machinery and solving these puzzles. And it looks really cool. It has sort of a similar art style to like the Job Simulator games, but like much less goofy. But like, yeah, seeing like the player character of being this like little robot dude going through and like solving puzzles. Again, we don't know too much about it, but it looks really cool.
Right.
If it has like a decent soundtrack to it, I think honestly this is like I'm a sucker for those logic games that allow for uh, players to do like whatever they want with them. Like I was a big fan of like World of Goo and Human Resource Machine.
Hmm.
So this like scratches that part of my brain. We also saw a bit of Behind Your, oh, sorry, not Behind Your Eyes, Before Your Eyes, which struck me. It's an afterlife themed game where you're like viewing the like regrets and experiences of someone's life from the perspective of them having already died in VR. And
Oh.
I don't know, it looked to me somewhere between To the Moon, which is a classic, like really depressing but so beautiful, like RPG Maker game from like the mid 2000s or early 2010s, and the Pixar movie Soul. Um, like if you took those two things and sort of combined them, like it showed like somebody who was like a next door neighbor to your character, like walking up to you in a museum that you had been to before in your life and just starting a conversation like, hey, it's been forever. And it's unclear whether or not she's also dead or whether you're like interacting with her as you did in your memories.
That's
And
cool.
I mean, it's pretty neat.
That sounds nice.
I'm a sucker for any game that like prioritizes like just really wrenching the player. As long as David Cage is not involved in the production of said game. Anyway, after that there was also, I think I'm doing these in reverse order actually. I think they came out in the opposite order that I'm describing them. But the other VR game that I wanted to highlight is made by the developers of What the Golf, which was sort of like a joke-esque golf game.
That was a good game.
It was really fun. There's a sequel. It's What the Bat, and it's bizarre for this to be like the sequel and also VR exclusive, but it is, and it looks to be just as funny, honestly, because like what the golf was very reliant on, like the we are going to take what you know about golf games and just throw it back at you because we have no reason not to. Uh, like there were levels in that in which the goal was like you hit the hole toward the ball, or like there were elements of the UI that you would actually be aiming towards, or you had to like hit a flock of geese into a soccer net because yeah, sure, whatever. And what the bat looks like, it's that same saying but themed around, instead of using a golf club for everything, you're using a baseball bat, and it's all VR. So I feel like that lends itself more naturally to VR. I don't know about you. I have not had great luck with VR mini golf. It is
I've never
difficult to
played
use.
it.
We actually have a game you can try here with at EKU. They've got an Oculus with a bunch of games preloaded onto it that you can rent out from the geeks downstairs. And we've got like a whole studio for that. There's also like a pretty decent fishing game, which like I'm not typically one for fishing games unless they're like mandatory to the story of Sonic Adventure, or they are included in We Play. But like this one's pretty good. I like personally recommend it. It's got a decent art style to it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was gonna ask like what your like overall impressions towards VR as a medium, since that's sort of the way that the industry is heading. Like, don't get me wrong, we still have like a large focus on AAA titles,
Oh yeah, definitely.
but VR is getting like a lot more of a spotlight, even if it's not heading the metaverse direction that people thought it was at the end of last year.
Yeah, no. I actually, me and my take on VR are actually like, I really like VR.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, it's mostly like playing VR is kind of, it gets a little repetitive after a while because it's
Right.
like, I want a VR game that's just like different because you have all these VR games like, oh, you're here, you're in the action. That's basically what VR is trying to do, right? Because you're in that reality, a different reality, you know, blah blah blah. But I want a game that's like almost like a console game or almost like a regular AAA title game, which is on VR.
Well, honestly, PlayStation might have you there because coming out soon is we've got a Horizon VR game coming out that's taking place in the world of like Horizon Forbidden West and Horizon Zero Dawn.
See, that will interest me right
And
there.
it looks amazing.
Oh
It's
my
got like
gosh.
really intricate like rock climbing mechanics.
Yeah, I saw that. See, I was waiting for you to say it. I didn't want to just like jump the gun, but like I don't have a PlayStation VR, and I want one after seeing that because I'm just like,
Oh, it's so cool.
I
Like the only
need
other
to play
game
the
that,
first
of
one,
this
though.
scale that I can think of would be like what was it, Half-Life Alyx.
Yeah, that was a
And
good one too.
that one I never got to play that one because like, oh my god, how would you if you don't have the money for that?
Yeah.
But like just the fact that Valve went out of their way to make like a full-scale game like that was so impressive. Horizon looks like it might be outpacing them here. This game looks ridiculous.
Wow.
I would also say that somebody's enjoyment of a lot of VR games is entirely dependent on like what genre they're looking for. Like if you're looking for horror, you're probably not gonna find a ton. Like don't get me wrong, like Capcom's got you covered a little bit. One of the scariest experiences I've ever had was going back through Resident Evil 7 in VR.
Ooh, yeah.
But that game's terrifying by itself.
Yeah.
The fact that after the fact they were like, oh yeah, we put VR support in this because why wouldn't we?
No, I would not. I'm not a big horror person, and horror anything, it's not my cup of tea.
I don't like horror other than like really well executed horror games as long as they're like a point to it.
No, if it's like okay. I recently watched Hereditary
Mm-hmm.
like a while ago, and that was a good movie. It was a very good movie.
I
I'm not
haven't
even
seen
lying.
it.
You need to watch it.
All right.
You need to watch it. After this, I will explain the full detail, or our producer can, but it's
Well, no spoilers either way.
no spoilers. But it's such a good movie. But I like games I like horror stuff that's like it leaves you thinking,
Mhm.
but it's not overly like jump scare in.
Yeah,
Jump scare,
I'm
you know?
I'm very much the same way. You
Hate
give
jump
me
scares.
you give me a game that's like after the fact you're thinking like what was that? What
Mm-hmm.
happened? Like you give me a game where it's like I need to be consistently thinking about this in ways other than that sure was scary in order for me to care about it. And Final Fantasy VII did such a good job. Not Final Fantasy VII. Resident Evil 7 did such a good job of like creating this environment of like, yeah, not only are you trapped in this house with this terrifying family, you are like figuring out what they are, why they are, and like maneuvering around them, figuring out how they function. And to a lot of the answers to that is they don't function. They're having a rough time.
Yeah.
And 8 did similar things mechanically, but I think went more a linear route with it. And while I really enjoyed Village, I don't think that it was quite as good of a horror experience as 7 was. I do think that if you're looking for a game that this isn't so much tied to VR, but if you're looking for like a game that is tied to horror specifically that doesn't rely on jump scares and will like make you think a whole lot and like dig deeper for things, I would personally recommend the Faith series.
Oh yeah.
Their Atari style graphics that use rotoscoped animation for all of the like horror bits, and it's so cool. We are getting a bit lengthy in terms of episode time here, so I'll drop it there. Do you have anything that you want to say to people, Jordan?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, he thinks he's good. Well, thank you all so much for listening to another episode of Eastern Geeks Out. As usual, you can find me at deforest_white124 at mymail.eku.edu, and you can contact the Eastern Progress at our site, www.easternprogress.com. You can find us on Facebook at Eastern Progress, or on, is it Twitter and Instagram at EP Media? No, that's wrong. I don't remember. It'll be on our site. If you're listening to this, you're on our site already.
Yeah.
From Jordan and I and everyone here at EP Media, glad to be back, and we hope you all have a lovely night.